Has it ever happened to you that you read your notes page by page, solved previous year question papers, read a literary theory 3 times, and on the next day you remembered absolutely nothing? Well, in that case, you're not alone. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about something that every UGC NET English student goes through. That feeling, that moment when you know that you've studied everything, but you remember nothing. Here's the good news, guys. It's not happening because you've not studied hard enough. It's happening because the way you're revising may not be helping your brain remember stuff. So in this video, I'm going to break down 3 very important things. First, understanding why is your brain forgetting whatever you have studied. Second, 5 memory-friendly strategies that actually work. And third, how to fix your revision style in the last 30 days. So without any further ado, let's get into it. First of all, understand this, guys, that your brain is not a storage box, right? It's a dynamic system. It's only going to retain the stuff. It's only going to keep the stuff that it thinks is important. Things like selective perception, right? That you perceive based on your subjectivity, your background, stuff like that. They play a very important role over here. Apart from that, also understand that each and every person has a different learning style. For instance, if your preferred learning style is visual, then you're going to understand and retain more stuff based on the videos you watch, the presentations you see. If it is auditory, then lectures, discussions, podcasts, stuff like that. But apart from all of those reasons, there are 3 common reasons you are forgetting everything you have studied. The first mistake is passive reading. Just reading your reference materials or the same textbooks over and over again is not going to help you much. It's only going to provide you an illusion that you are understanding so many things all at once. But when it comes to actively recalling it during revision, it's not going to help you. The second common mistake that you might be making right now is that you don't have any retrieval practice. Right? What does that mean? It basically means that if you don't actively test yourself, if you don't actively test your memory by solving PYQs or by solving mock quizzes, you're not sending a signal to your brain that it needs to hold on to that information. The moment you start putting your memory to practice, the moment you test yourself is the moment when you send your brain the signals that, oh wait, you need to hold on to this information. Understand that reading is only an input that you're giving to your brain. Memory needs an output. And finally, the third common mistake that you may be making right now is cramming without spacing. I understand that UGC NET English questions are very factual in nature and not conceptual. Right? They test your memory. They ask about the years in which the works were published, the years in which the authors were born, or basically the chronology-based questions which test your memory and not your understanding of, let's say, a literary theory. Then in that case, it's quite obvious, it's quite natural that you are going to try and put as much information as you can get as quickly as possible. Right? But understand one thing, guys, your brain needs time to process so much information and move that information to long-term memory. So if you are making these 3 common mistakes, let's fix that with practical strategies that you can start today. First, prioritize active recall over rereading stuff. After you are done studying a topic, close your book and try to remember whatever you have studied, right? Try to speak to yourself, write it down and make yourself understand all of those topics that you practiced during that point of time. Then, once you do that, you're going to identify certain spaces, certain subtopics that you were not able to recall. Revise only those topics. For instance, let's say you are learning the topic of post-colonialism right now. What are you going to do in that case? Once you are done learning about the topics and the key terms, you're going to close your book and you're going to try and recall the key theorists associated with it, the key terms, the years in which the major works were produced, and also try and create your own sample MCQ questions. Test yourself, make yourself understand it, right? Once you do all of those things, what's going to happen is that you are sending your brain the signal that you need to hold on to this particular information. The second most effective strategy that you can use right now is spaced repetition. Considering that UGC NET English syllabus is so information heavy, that it's so fact based, you will have to revise at least 2 to 3 times before you appear for your exam. But that revision has to be done in gaps. What does that mean? So let's say you started your UGC NET preparation with paper 2. And now you're about to complete your paper 2 preparation and you're about to start with paper 1. A lot of UGC NET aspirants make this mistake that while they are preparing for their paper 1, they are not going to revise paper 2. And then they get so lost in their preparation for paper 1 that they forget to revise for paper 2. So what happens towards the end? Everything is jumbled up in their head. And when they sit down to give their UGC NET English exam, they are not able to actively recall whatever they have studied. So make sure that you don't make this mistake. If you are done preparing for your paper 2 and you are starting for your paper 1 preparation, while preparing for your paper 1, don't miss out on paper 2. Keep on revising the important sections, the important topics that you know that are frequently asked in UGC NET English exam, and then you prepare for paper 1 accordingly. So when the moment comes, you are also prepared, fully prepared for your paper 2. At the same time, you are fully prepared for your paper 1 and you have completely revised both of these sections. The third most effective strategy that you can use right now to ramp up your revision is the 30-10-5 rule. After every 30 minutes of your study, spend 10 minutes in actively recalling whatever you have studied and 5 minutes in teaching that part to yourself. So basically, when you teach that part to yourself in those 5 minutes, when you summarize that part to yourself in the last 5 minutes, you are basically helping your brain retain the complex concepts. Right? You are breaking down the complex concepts into simplified bits and pieces if it's a literary theory. If it's British literature or for that matter any information heavy content, then this 30-10-5 rule is going to help you break down this huge repertoire of information into bits and pieces. This will only speed up your retention process. You will be able to retain vast amount of information faster. The next important strategy that is very essential for you to implement in your revision is the blind spot review method. So what is this method? A lot of times what happens is that once UGC NET aspirants are done with their preparation, they are going to spend revising the important topics, the frequently asked topics, and the topics that they already know. But they are not going to cover certain areas, certain topics, thinking that only some questions are being asked. Don't make that mistake. Spend at least 30 minutes a day focusing on such kind of topics that you know that some questions are asked, but it does not fall into the mainstream syllabus. For example, you have Indian Rasa theory, you have world literature, and you have so many other topics like these from which certain questions are always asked in UGC NET English exam. Why should you cover that topic? To develop that extra competitive edge in UGC NET exam. Apart from Rasa theory or world literature, if you want to know what are these high-yielding topics that a lot of UGC NET English aspirants ignore but are definitely asked in UGC NET exam, then you can watch my full-length video on the same. Make a note of all of those topics and prepare them well. So when it comes to your UGC NET English exam, you're able to tackle questions related to it. And who knows, maybe answering those few questions will help your JRF dream come true. And finally, the most effective revision strategy that you should start doing from today itself is mnemonics and mind maps. Use mnemonics for tackling the chronology-based questions. Use mind maps to understand movements, authors, works. Because at the end of the day, remember guys that you are not just giving UGC NET English exam for the sake of it. You're giving it because you want to be an assistant professor, because you want to go into the field of research and pursue higher studies. In that case, you don't need to understand these things superficially. You need to have a deep conceptual understanding about literature, about the theories, about the terms, the concepts, and how it adds to culture and society, right? Because that is going to help you prepare yourself for your career, for your profession. Now that the exam is almost a month away, it's important to implement all of these revision strategies from today itself. Secondly, make sure that you prepare from your own notes. You're not reading new materials now. Your brain recognizes your handwriting, your keywords, the highlights that you have made. And most importantly, guys, I cannot stress this enough. You need to solve PYQs every day. You need to check how many questions you're getting right, how many questions you're not getting right, and see if there's a pattern wherein you're not able to solve certain questions from a specific topic over and over again. Revise that topic once more and understand that when you sit down to prepare, when you sit down to revise those concepts, you teach yourself. You explain those concepts out loud because, guys, it's the best self-text. So let's quickly revise all of the effective revision strategies that we discussed in this video. First, switch to active recall. Second, space out your revision. Third, use the 30-10-5 rule. Fourth, the blind spot review method. And fifth, use mnemonics and mind maps. And one last tip, guys. Trust your brain. It's working behind the scenes even when it doesn't feel like it. If this video helped you shift your approach to revision, then drop a comment below and let me know what you are struggling to remember the most. And as always, like, subscribe and share this video to a fellow UGC NET aspirants who needs this right now. You've got this, guys. Let's finish it strong.